Just going to start as a subcommittee. We're going to go with Representative Taylor. If you'd pop up here, we're going to go out of order, knock out a couple of these House bills. And you can start when you're ready. Representative. This is on House Bill 1870.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it. Thanks for allowing me to come here. Representative Tim Taylor, representing the 48th District, which includes Cooper, Howard, Sheridan, and Western Randolph. I've come before you to present House Bill 1870, which is going to be information that you've heard previously with a bill that Senator Williams is carrying, that Senate Bill 1356. Currently, the MERC, or the Missouri Emergency Response Commission, has a sunset on the ability to collect fees from hazardous materials transporters. Those fees fall under the forms, Tier 2 forms. I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but these minor fees are able to provide training and for emergency preparedness, hazmat cleanup, and that type of thing. The date is sunsetting this year. It's kind of an oversight. Nobody caught it, so unfortunately we're down to the wire on this. This bill simply changes the date from 2018 to 2024, which is going to extend that for another 6 years to 2030. The difference, my bill differs from the Senate bill in that my bill simply only changes the date. It does nothing else to get rid of the sunset or change anything. The mindset to me is that this is so important that I didn't want to change anything that might slow this down, in hopes to be able to keep it simple and to get it through the process without delay. It is coming down. There's unfortunately not been much that this passed through the House on the consent process, so there's great support for it, but unfortunately there hasn't been much that I can tack this to or find another avenue for it to progress. Senator Williams' bill seeks to get rid of that sunset, which I'm not opposed to. I'm a fan of sunsets in the initial go of bills, and this one has been in place for years and years and years, and it does seem like a hurdle that we have to keep coming back to do, to revisit each time, and it's been well established. So again, mine doesn't attempt to do that, just to keep it simple. Breaking it down right to, and there are many people here who are going to testify and can give really good details, but I would like to read you this one short paragraph in the fiscal note. If not renewed, the local emergency planning committees or districts would lose approximately $650,000 in eligible funds. In many communities, these are the only funds available to remain compliant with federal law. Most preparedness activities will not continue. Approximately $80,000 in training money to the Missouri Division of Fire Safety would be lost, and the match for the $400,000 from MoDOT grant would not be met. This is the most important thing for me, being a retired firefighter and one who has received a lot of training over several decades. Without this grant, approximately 1,000 first responders will not receive any hazmat preparedness or response training. So I would, like I said, it's just really important. Unfortunately, we're down to the wire on this. Take any questions at this point, sir.
Questions for the representative? Seeing none, thank you for testimony. Anybody here to testify in favor of this bill? If you are, just go ahead and pop up, and please make sure you fill out a witness form.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, good morning. My name is Ron Leone. I'm the Executive Director of the Missouri Petroleum and Convenience Association, which means I represent many of the gas stations, convenience stores, and truck stops in your districts, and my members pay a large portion of these fees. We support the bill. We support the program. We support the commission. We support the fee. I would like to suggest to this committee that you only extend the fee and you not eliminate the sunset like Senator Williams, Senate Bill 1356. I've been doing this a while, Mr. Chairman, and it's always important for people who are sitting in those chairs 6, 7 years from now have the opportunity to look at the program, see if it's still working right, see if it needs a fee increase, some sort of fee change. So I'm a fan of extensions and not sunsets, and would appreciate that when you move this bill forward that you extend and not eliminate the sunset. I'm happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for your testimony. Anybody else here to testify in favor of the bill?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Organ Schlemmer, on behalf of the Fire Service Alliance, we too support the bill and the sunset. Now, of course, on the FRA, if you chose to remove it entirely, that would be okay, but on this bill, it seems like it's a good idea.
Bill Gamble on behalf of the Missouri Association of Councils of Government. We serve as, some of our folks serve as the LEPCs. Very important to local communities. We'd like to record and support.
Questions to this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Anybody else here to testify in favor?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Tom Rackers, testifying on behalf of Boone County Fire Protection District, Missouri Task Force 1. And I have a letter from our chief in support of this legislation that I'll leave with you.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, anybody else here to testify in favor?
Briefly, Mr. Chairman, Brent Hemphill with the Missouri Ambulance Association. Just want to go on record in support of the bill.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, anybody else here to testify in favor?
Good morning, sir. Jim Remillard with the Missouri State Emergency Management. And do you want me to read my remarks or just, we're in support of this bill?
If you have remarks that are printed out, just send them to us. We'll distribute them to the committee.
It's very critical to support our first responders, and that's why we're in support of this. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Further testimony in favor of the bill? Anybody here in opposition? Anybody for informational purposes? That'll conclude the hearing on House Bill 1870. Any closing remarks, Representative?
Just to say thank you very much. It's an important issue and appreciate the time. Thank
Yeah,
you.
well, if you're not thrilled with delays, you're not going to be very thrilled with how the Senate functions. So, sorry about that. All right, we're going to go to Representative Myers, House Bill 1707.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jeff Myers. I'm a representative for District 42, which is Warren, Montgomery County. I'm here this morning to present House Bill 1707. Deals with law enforcement practices. Basically, what this does is establish a legal framework that should agencies be requested from out of state to come in, it provides the mechanics for them to come in and provide assistance upon the request of the chief executive officer of the department. This is the same language as 1015 that was heard in this committee last year. There's also a part in here that does a cleanup for some emergency motor vehicle language as well. With that, I'll take any questions.
Questions for the sponsor? Seeing none. Anybody here to testify in favor of House Bill 1707? Anybody here to testify in opposition to House Bill 1707? Anybody here for informational purposes only? That'll conclude the hearing. Well done,
Thank you.
Representative. That'll conclude the hearing on House Bill 1707. Representative Christ, you got House Committee Substitute for House Bill 1481. Hop up here and proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate the hearing this morning. Moving a little slow, though, chasing softballs all over the diamond from you last night, so hopefully I have a good testimony here. Look, I mean, this is painful for me. I'm a nobody freshman legislator. Came up here, filed this legislation to support the police, citizens, handle a public safety crisis. and this has been extremely difficult. And I'm in rinse and repeat mode where I'm just repeating myself over and over. And the crisis is getting worse and worse. So this bill hasn't changed. It's the bill to put local control back into the city of St. Louis. There's kind of a media buzz to say it's a state takeover. This is not a state takeover. It will be 4 citizens of the city of St. Louis on this board. And the point is to take politics out of policing and put it back into local control. There's no question that we have a crisis in St. Louis. Every week, we're making national headlines about our public safety crisis, about our desert of a downtown. I've got, in my personal life, I have business people that won't stay downtown anymore. I had a client stay downtown. He wandered off campus to try to find a soda. Couldn't even find a convenience store to buy a soda. Walked a couple blocks, someone's doing donuts in the middle of the road. We got Wall Street Journal articles talking about empty skyscrapers in our downtown. A skyscraper just sold for a couple $1 million. I think it's a terrible investment. They got to pay $150,000 just to keep the lights on in this building. The public safety crisis is a mess. The police are hurting. We're down to one of our lowest counts of police officers ever. It's dangerous for them. It's dangerous for the citizens. And we're not getting anything done. There's no answers. We have these crime summits, these little crime parties, how we're going to fix this. Nothing happens. So I'm up here in my second year trying to get this done. I'm more than happy to meet in the middle. We finally have started having some discussions on how to do this. But it's just frustrating. And I know the senator on the committee has worked really hard on this as well. So that being said, I mean, the opposition is going to say, look, Kansas City has this, their crime's up, St. Louis is down. No, it's not. Crime's not down in the city. Their crime per capita is double Kansas City's. Okay, I'll put up Kansas City statistics against St. Louis statistics all day. And this is no indictment of Chief Tracy. I met with him. I think he's doing a great job, but he's been dealt a really bad hand. And I just want to increase his chances of having massive success. That's what this is about, supporting the police. Again, this isn't a crime plan. I never touted it as a crime plan. This is about building a foundation of a police department that's been demoralized, consistently defunded. The patrol budget a few years ago was almost $90 million. Now it's under $30 million. They'll say their public safety budget is going up. They're playing funny numbers. They're putting money into different buckets for community policing and social workers, et cetera, et cetera. They're defunding patrol. There's police officers nowhere. We have citizens being slaughtered, pedestrians being ran over by cars. We can't even do the basics of traffic control, much less heavy, violent crime control. So I plead you to help me in this effort, and I appreciate the hearing. I'll take any questions.
Representative, what was the change in the House Committee substitute from the bills we've seen in the past?
That was something we took out last year, and I didn't take it out this year, but it was a liability of the state when we do put this board in control.
Okay. Questions for the sponsor? Seeing none. Anybody here to testify in favor of House
Thank
Bill
you.
1481?
Good morning, Jay Schroeder. I'm sure you guys have heard from me enough on this issue, so I'm just here to say that the Missouri FOP and the St. Louis Police Officers Association are in support of this bill. I also have a letter I brought from the Law Enforcement Legislative Coalition. It's comprised of police chiefs and prosecutors from across the state, and they're also in support of this bill. That is all I have, and I will stand for any questions.
Questions?
Sorry, one more
Go
thing.
ahead.
We are meeting with the parties, like Representative Chris said, to try to get this thing to a head and get it done. So that is currently ongoing.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Schroeder? Go ahead, Senator.
Jay, thanks for coming again today. Can you give us an update on the vacancies within the St. Louis City Police Department?
I think we're hovering somewhere around 350.
Wow. And that's not including the 100 that back when I was in the House, we did the local control or local residency requirement. We repealed that. There's about 100 then, correct? With
Correct.
the former mayor.
Correct.
That's not counting those 100 because those are gone, correct?
Correct.
adding those in, you're at about 450.
Correct.
Do you see any light at the end of the tunnel from your perspective? I mean, you're entrenched in this all day long. Are you seeing things starting to change? Are you seeing the numbers slowly going the opposite direction?
I think we're still having trouble keeping up with the attrition. I know we've got a couple academy classes, or one that is getting ready to start that has a significant number of recruits in it, but we still, when you get into a hole like we've been to over the years, it's going to be hard to climb out of that hole. So this is going to be a huge process to try to get out of this hole, and this bill, I think, is something that's going to help that process.
Now, would you say that the vast majority of the boots on the ground, the police in the city of St. Louis are for this bill? Because when I've had meetings up here with different police officers from ESOP, from the FOP, from POA, I've had 100% consensus. And I mean, generally speaking, you're not going to see every single member on every single item be supportive of something, but this is very strange to see the vast majority of the police that I've spoken with that have come up here, regardless of their color, regardless of their union affiliation, they're supportive of this. Why is that?
Well, I think even it's actually kind of strange. You hear the newer people that haven't lived under the Board of Police Commissioners even talk about how things probably would be better under that. I think it was a better system, and it took not all, but the majority of the politicalness out of the police department, and allowed the police department to run and function separate from the city. That we know has had a lot of problems since we've come over.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Further questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Anybody else here to testify in favor of the House bill?
Morning, Jane Duker on behalf of the Missouri Fraternal Order of Police, St. Louis Police Officers Association, and St. Louis County Police Officers Association. As of today, SLMPD is 353 officers short. We have nearly 270 officers eligible to retire. So that's a terrifying thought and a cliff that could actually be a major problem. The reason why we are in a crisis situation right now is the earnings tax lawsuit that's looming over the city of St. Louis. And they're looking at the lawsuit coming down that indicates that they wrongfully collected from people who never entered into the city for earnings tax. And the estimates are anywhere from 25 to 50 million a year. Both the president of the Board of Aldermen and the mayor have publicly said that should they lose that lawsuit, the bulk of the cuts are going to come from the police department. So by the time you guys come back next January, if this doesn't happen this year, by the time you come back, there could be significant cuts, more cuts to the police. Obviously, the vast majority of the expenditures in the city of St. Louis are for people. So if you have to take a big cut, right now the community policing, which includes patrol, that's a $70 million budget. If you take a lot out of that I don't know what you can take other than humans. So that's a crisis. And if we don't get this fixed, we rang the bell about Kim Gardner for years, and it took a child to lose their legs before people actually focused on this. The bell is ringing, and no matter what happens to the city of St. Louis, you have to have a police force that can protect the city. And the way we're going now, without state control, we're gonna continue to lose officers. Since 2021, 571 officers have left. Now, we've replaced some of those, but that reinforces Mr. Schroeder's statements that we're nowhere close to keeping up with attrition. So I think that is the biggest thing, is you can't have a police force without police officers.
Thank you for testimony. Senator Shore.
Jane, I just want to ask you, I don't know how you do it. Do you have a crystal ball at home? Because the past couple of years, you've been predicting these things that come out to be true. Rewind to January when we had my version of this, and you indicated that the crime statistics were fudged, that there was something wrong with the crime statistics. Shortly thereafter, the Business Journal came out saying, yeah, you can't trust them. Correct. I think it was a SLU professor. Can you talk a little bit about that and why we should be worried about these crime statistics.
Well, yeah, I mean, the public has a right to know what the actual crime situation is. And the problem is, since 2021, when the feds changed sort of the reporting system, the city used to be the gold standard of reporting crime statistics. But then once the change came over, there are numerous situations where stuff was not reported. The SLU professor, they finally, after 2 years of screaming, saying you have got to produce data supporting your claims of what the crime stats are. And there was a couple data dumps, and they have 12 people on staff at SLU that are attempting to make sense out of the crime data. You could go to the state, you can go to the FBI website, you can go to the SLMPD's website, and you will get 3 different homicide numbers. Homicides are a little hard to sort of, mess around with too much, but all the other violent crime,
Right.
there is significant problems.
Well, even some of
with
the ones
data.
that I read in that Business Journal article on like rapes,
Yes.
when they went back and looked, they didn't mesh. And
Correct.
I want to know if there's any indication that we're going to get that straightened out. But since that Business Journal article, I haven't heard a peep about clarifying some of those numbers, which I believe the people do need to know.
The only people that I've been able to talk to has been Ness Sandoval from SLU, who says they have a whole staff right now of 12, 13 people trying to make heads or tails of it. You can also talk to Representative Donna Behringer.
Okay.
She had her intern spend an entire month trying to go through the crime stats. And she was able to, just from her district, come up with crimes that were not reported, and significant problems with the data. So we're not, you don't have to believe us. I mean, there are any number of parties that are very concerned about the city's ability to just produce the data. St. Louis County has gotten through it. Kansas City's gotten through it. Oh, by the way, Kansas City fixed their earnings tax problem. They never collected the money. They put it into their budget. They took care of the problem.
Well, let me ask you about Kansas City real quick, because I know some of the opponents of this bill will say, well, the board control doesn't work in Kansas City. And going back to that residency repeal, when I try to make it statewide in the House, I was told, you can't compare St. Louis and Kansas City. Apples and oranges, totally different. The board makeup's totally different. Like, everything's totally different with St. Louis and Kansas City, but now suddenly we can compare them. What are the differences between the board control under Kansas City? And I've heard from the FOP out there and the injection of politics and how they're saying you can't prosecute certain crimes. What's the difference between the board control that's out there versus the board control that's contained within this bill?
Well, I mean, I think, one, a lot of people compare the crime rate Kansas City to St. Louis. Well, that's very difficult because Kansas City has 506,000 and St. Louis is under 300,000. Kansas City has, 3 times the area to cover. So, so the St. Louis crime rate per capita, per humans, per 100,000 is so much higher, more than double than Kansas City. So trying to compare the two is inappropriate because St. Louis's crime rate is still much worse. And so I think, one, that they're just 2 very different cities. Kansas City doesn't seem to be having the problem with attracting the business, the events, the things that St. Louis City are having. I mean, our tourists, you come to St. Louis, your car's going to get broken into at the hotel. You're going to get robbed at the Arch. You could lose your legs. You could be killed after a concert. I mean, we have a huge PR problem, and and all I'm told is, you're a doomsayer, and that sort of thing. But the problem is, you have to be truthful about what the problem is before you try to address it.
Well, some of that PR I saw, there was a video, and you may know, you may have shared it on social media, of the cars going through the stoplights.
Yes.
Just like 10 of them.
Yes.
And that's, one of the reasons why at that Drake concert, after the Drake concert,
Yes.
the 2 tourists from Chicago were mauled over, and it looked like it was from a video game.
Yes.
You couldn't even believe that this was actually happening in the city that we all grew up in and loved. Now there's an injection of red light cameras to try and stop this. I think the political powers that be in St. Louis have said, we think it's going to get litigated. We think it's going to go through the courts. What is your take on the red light cameras? Will that really stop this, or do we need bodies on the ground like we've seen in other cities and other states to stop this kind of madness?
I mean, I think and I worked on red light cameras, so I'm very intimately familiar with them. Worked on them for years, and it's a good tool. However, people getting stopped by a police officer is always more powerful than getting a ticket in the mail. I mean, that's reality. And the people who are running these lights are not the ones with insurance and not the ones that are people who are going to be, the law abiders are going to pay the tickets. The non-law abiders who don't have tags, who don't have insurance, a police officer is going to have to, change their behavior.
Well, if they don't pay, what's the plan in the city of St. Louis post Senate Bill 5?
Well, they have flag the tag, which is one option they can use to try to, but if you don't have tags, there's nothing to flag.
Right. If the plates don't match, then what?
Right. Well, and they get points on your license, assuming you have one. So those tools are mainly for law-abiding people who care about their insurance rates and care about things that, their record, getting points, whether they can keep their license. A lot of, unlaw-abiding citizens don't care a whit about any of that. And so I think it's a tool, but it just seems like they're doing everything to replace officers. We heard the technology. We're going to leverage technology. That's how we're going to get over this staffing crisis. We hear a lot about that. Well, then you have the Board of Aldermen going in and saying, okay, we have to approve every bit of technology the police is going to use in order to deter crime. And the problem with that is, why would we tell the criminals what we're going to do to apprehend them? I don't understand why. It seems sort of like, again, the criminals get more of the agenda at the Board of Aldermen. And it's not just the mayor. Everyone says this is directed at the mayor. One, this bill was at least presented to the legislature under Lyda Crewson. This wasn't a Mayor Jones. We also have a Board of Aldermen problem. They're limiting technology now. I don't understand why that would even be something that's at the top of the food chain as far as priorities when people are dying in the streets. And so, so now technology is, sort of being used to replace police officers. And it's not going to work. And so, and the citizens aren't safe and the officers are not safe. That's what's really the most fundamental thing. People are dying.
Further questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Anybody else here to testify in favor of the House bill? Anybody here in opposition to the House bill?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and subcommittee. Chief Robert Tracy, St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak before you again. This is multiple times. I'm not going to rehash a lot of the positions that I've been on, but I'd like to hit on a few points. Last year was my first time here for this bill, and there were things that were talked about that was morale, it was crime. The police chief is not allowed to do his job. There's politics in policing. People are dying. Yes, we have a violence problem, not just only in this city, but in the region and throughout the United States. So I just want to come here to reiterate, to take the job that I did coming as the first outsider of the 200-year history in St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. I've been a chief before. I've worked in New York, Chicago, Wilmington, Delaware, and now here. I would not have taken this job if I thought I couldn't do this job, and there would be politics that prevent me from doing the job that needed to be done to make sure that these great men and women of the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department can get their job done and they can be supported in the job they're going to be that they need to do. I'm here not to stay a chief. I'm here to be a chief, to make sure we get the job done. And that's what I'm going to do to support them and support the city of St. Louis. Coming in, we talked about the crime. So that was last year. So crime did come down about 23%. And we'll get into some of the statistics because there was a rebuttal in the Business Journal, St. Louis Business Journal, a couple of days after that, St. Louis sociologist, not a criminologist, who put things out that just were not true. And I did a rebuttal personally, and I suggest that everybody should read that to at least give a fair shake when we put that out there. I'm not going to go into some of the things that he said. Read the rebuttal, and then they backed off because they actually said things are being done, and they weren't challenging the information or the credibility of the crime statistics. They were challenging how they received it. So please take a look at that. Down 23% in overall crime. Then we had the lowest homicide numbers in 10 years after the first year. Bringing in a strategy, but it has to be executed by the men and women of the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. They do a tremendous job. Yes, they are down. I walked into this place being down a few hundred officers. But I also looked around the country, and when I talked to other chiefs, the number one issue in the United States for every chief at every police department is the number of police officers and getting people into this profession. So we're all in a crisis. I'm not sure state control is going to help with that, bringing people into this profession. It's about making sure that we support these officers, making sure they know they're supported, and then the future officers. We just put a class in of 24 yesterday. Since I came aboard, we had about almost 1,000 commissioned officers in January of 2023. We're at 918. Yes, we've slowed down attrition compared to where it was in the past. And it's going to take time to come back, just like every other police department. And that's my goal to do. When we talk about morale, and we talk about police officers' morale, yes, morale, when they're working harder, working with less throughout the United States, we got to make sure we keep a good eye on the officers' mental health and wellness. But 18 police officers in the last 14 months since I've been here that left our police department have come back. I've sworn them back in. And others, more than that, reapplied, but they just probably weren't the right fit at this time. So they're coming back to the city of St. Louis. So yes, there's 270 officers eligible to retire. That's every police department in the United States with anybody over 20 years. That's a natural attrition rate. But are they leaving the way they've left in the last few years? The answer is no. And I think one of the things last year that we talked about was the money. Are we competitive? No, we weren't. And the mayor gave an historic raise. And we have an economic reopener, although some things are on hold because we have to take a look at some things with the earnings tax. But last year they got an historic raise up and down the rank and file to make us competitive. And I think that helped bring police officers back, helped validate it, do the job that they did. And that was done by this mayor. So there's a lot of things that have been happening in policing from the pandemic, civil unrest throughout the United States, coming in, trying to stabilize things, taking an opportunity, working with the community. The homicide numbers, right now, we're a couple of homicides above where we were last year, but we're well below right now where we were 2 and 3 and 4 years ago. We got a lot of work to do. No one's saying that there isn't a lot of work to do. When it comes to traffic, we talk about what's going on with traffic and behavior. I believe there's an appetite for a bill that was put in by law enforcement agencies to try to make it a crime to flee from the police. Now, there were statistics, not from our police department, but how many people fail to yield on a police officer's signal to be pulled over. I think the number is about 2,700 from another jurisdiction. So this is not just a St. Louis issue. So if we can leverage technology, not replace the people that we have, but in the meantime, they're not mutually exclusive. Use both of them. And one of the things at a community meeting last night, the mayor and I were talking to a community on the north side, and one of the things is trying to get this department back up to budgeted strength. So no one's defunding the police. The mayor has given me the authority to try to get, if I had 200 people that came off a bus that were qualified, I would get them right in the academy. And I'm trying to get there. We're trying to get there. I'm working with the union. I'm working with ESOP. We're creating units and in going out and trying to recruit more and more police officers, but it's going to take time to get there, just like every other police department. So I just kind of want to put some of those things on the table that were talked about this year. But I know, given time, whether we're under state control or local control, it's going to take the same amount of time and the same type of determination to make sure we get to that place. And I only know local control. And instead of answering to 5 commissioners and trying to get a consensus on anything I need to do in this police department to move us forward in the positive way, I'd rather be able to go to my mayor, who has appointed me, who's elected official, who has given me the cover and be able to told you, go out and lead on, chief, and do your job. And I bring things to her and hold me accountable. That's just one person. That's just one person, instead of 5 trying to get a consensus. I don't know much about it, but I worry about answering to 5 people and trying to get a consensus of doing my job compared to a person who appointed me that has told me, you lead on, chief, help fix the city, help look at public safety, help try to improve on some of the things in the past. So I'll leave it at that. There was other things that I've said in the past, and I'll leave it open for a question. So thank you very much for giving me an opportunity.
Yeah, Chief, just a second. I'm sorry to interrupt. We're going to take a roll call really quick so we can get a quorum and do an official committee. Ben, call the roll.
Senators Fitzwater,
Here.
Brown, Bean, Eigel, Razor, Schroer, Williams.
Quorum being established, we will be in regular order. Questions for the chief? Senator, I'm gonna ask a couple here really quick, and then you can have Mike. Chief, I think a lot of the concern, which you probably understand this from a general perspective, is that St. Louis the region is half of our state's economy. As St. Louis goes, the state goes. And the overarching concern is that St. Louis is this struggling, dying city. The whole attitude towards the city is that businesses are fleeing, residents are fleeing. The population has taken a massive nosedive over the last couple decades. And without some significant change, that failure flywheel is continuing to kind of spin faster and faster and faster and faster. And that's where the big concerns are. How do you fix that from your perspective without a big change like this that tries to fight some of the issues that are causing that flywheel to continue to gain momentum?
If you go back in history, in 2017, I was the first outside chief in the city of Delaware. City of Wilmington in Delaware. And one of the things, they called it Murder Town, USA. And it was some of the same issues that I'm seeing here in St. Louis. There was officers were leaving, the morale was bad, public safety, the strategy wasn't being executed. We were down in offices. It takes a little time. Now that city right now is booming. Things have come back. Good leadership, investment in some of the things that we're doing that take some time. Coming out of a time where that city was spiraling. The morale of the police came around, the strategies, crime came down, good investments that were being made. And what I see happening, and I've been in cities under distress, and so I'm not trying to be anecdotal here, but you can take a look at things from the experience that I've been in and the places I've been, just looking at downtown, I was just downtown with the Battlehawks, we had the Cardinals, we had the St. Louis Soccer Club. We have so many things going on. The Blues season just ended, but we have concerts. Sometimes we can have over 100,000 people just on a day down in the city of St. Louis. I'm seeing this in an upbeat, and then when we talk about car break-ins and we talk about this, we are down in every single category from where we were last year. A lot of it has to do with the type of strategies we're using, working with the private sector, but at the same time, there's also a new circuit attorney. So when our officers are making those arrests, people are being held accountable for them. And then we're going back for the crimes they weren't charged, because we were arresting people multiple times up until last year. We're charging for the crimes that have happened. I think that was a big contributing factor of some of the decline, because if you're not holding the people accountable, and especially the people doing crimes, and it's quality of life crimes on top of violent crimes, you're going to see places deteriorate. I think we have a new circuit attorney. I know we have a new circuit attorney, but I know the type of work that he's already doing, what I'm seeing. The morality officers are coming back, and I think that's a big reason as well. Crime is starting to go down, and that's going to be the turn that you're going to start to see, where other people are going to start feeling safer. Perception takes a long time to catch up to reality. I do stand by our statistics. I know some things are thrown out there, and I think that, and I've done a rebuttal on that, and I think it was very well received. So I think that's where it starts, whether you're under state control, local control. But I've only known local control, and every place that I've been in, when the mayor is in charge and making sure they're running the city, we've had some great success.
Further questions for the chief, Senator Schroer?
Thank you, Chief. I know you just mentioned I wasn't going to talk about it, but Gabe Gore, new circuit attorney, how's he doing?
He's absolutely doing a phenomenal job. He came into a very tough situation. He also had to do what we're actually going through, try to rebuild the amount of people that left an organization, and we're starting to slow that attrition down, and we're seeing people come back. They can do it a lot quicker. He has, because of his really good reputation. People have come in. We're starting to see things, the Warren office open right back up. So now we can have our officers speaking to an assistant circuit attorney. The list that used to be there,
Yep.
that's no longer there.
Was it necessary in your opinion?
No, there was no due process to get on that list. It was very subjective. There's a Brady list. We
Yep.
abide by that. Circuit attorney and myself speak that about all the time, and we're
Well,
making
Chief,
sure.
the reason that I bring it up before your time, and I know where your heart is, and I know where your mind is on where you want the city to be, where you want the the police department to be. But before your time, we were told that Kim Gardner wasn't a problem, the circuit attorney wasn't a problem. Gabe Gore's doing a great job, and he got there because of state involvement. And that's where, not necessarily aimed at you, but some of the individuals saying this bill's not necessary, the same people that said getting Kim Gardner to actually prosecute these cases wasn't necessary. And to me, it's the same group that's saying, hey, we don't need this, just leave it be, and we've got this thing. So that's where I'm going to kind of go into the impact. If we leave the status quo as it is, what is your take on what we've heard today on the earnings tax lawsuit and the judgment, the brunt of which there are rumors we've heard from individuals that the board has said the brunt's going to come from law enforcement. The mayor allegedly has said, and I see her staff's shaking her head. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. If this does come from the brunt of that, if it comes out of law enforcement's budget, what's the impact that that's going to have on your department?
Well, when the first statements came about as being a good overseer of where our finances go, the mayor, the first announcement she made is that we're necessary and essential employees. There's no hiring freeze on the police officers. I just put an academy class in of 24 people on Monday. That didn't stop us. And so when there's things, there's refuge, there's other areas, police, fire, that is not going to be cut. She has not talked about defunding it at all with the police or actually cutting back on the police. She actually said that's one of the things that continue to go through because she sees the importance.
But hasn't the president, the Board of Aldermen, actually campaigned on defunding the police? I mean, I remember during the campaigns holding defund the police signs. So if we're looking back at history, that's the best indicator of what's going to happen in the future. And we've already seen, we've heard from the different committee hearings from last year and this year that millions have been defunded from the patrol budget. And we've heard allegations that if this lawsuit goes the way many think it is, the brunt of that is going to come from law enforcement. So if these people that are saying that they wanted to defund the police now have the opportunity to do it, hypothetically speaking, if that happens, what impact is that going to have on your department?
Well, I can't speak for the Board of Alder president. I can't speak for what happened before I came here and how she campaigned. All I know is there's checks and balances within city government that actually I've seen them challenge what she has asked for, and including trying to eliminate ShotSpotter. So you had the mayor and the treasurer, the comptroller, absolutely say no. We're gonna continue to move.
What was the rationale behind that, briefly?
ShotSpotter, I think some people just don't understand when it's I use the word leverage because it's a good word. Leveraged right and used right in the proper way, it can make a difference on violent crime and reduce shootings by getting trigger pullers off the street and solving some of the murders so a person can't go out and do that again. And to say to our detectives and our men and women of the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, we had over 70% homicide clearance rates, which is probably one of the highest. Actually, it was higher than that. It was over 75%. It's one of the highest I've ever seen in my career.
Just imagine if you guys are fully staffed.
Well, you know what? We could maybe fully staffed. We're going to get to that point, sir. But it takes time, and we're not the only police department suffering from that. But you did ask one question, if you don't mind me going back. You said, so what changed? We've been here before. Well, there was a question that was asked last year. Well, what has changed is that looking at the way things were done before, bringing an outside chief in that has had some success with outside eyes, working with very talented people, we have made changes. And that was the thing that we asked last year. Give this police chief a chance. And we did. And we hit a lot of the benchmarks that was asked of us last year. And now there's additional things that are going on that are longer-term problems to resolve. So what I ask you is give this police chief a chance under this mayor, under this system that we have, because we have made progress. And I promise you that if we continue to let us go down this road uninterrupted, we will get there. But there's always challenges with city government. There's challenges down here at the state level. People are not going to agree. But I think putting the right narrative, putting the right justifications in, we'll be able to overcome some of those things that might negatively affect the police on the Board of Alders. And I've been very outspoken with the Board of Alders against things that I thought would hurt public safety, because I believe my job is to protect that city.
Well, on that, and I know we've been kind of asked behind the scenes here on Gabe Gore doing his job in prosecuting and where to put some of these criminals, where to hold them. And, the Board of Aldermen closed the workhouse. What impact has that had with the connections with the federal apprehensions and closures, the money that was coming into the budget? Without that, what impact has that had on law enforcement for you guys to do the job that you want to do?
Well, I believe, that really, what's happening in there and the money that comes in, whether it's federal or not, we got a great relationship with all our federal and state partners, and that continues with our U.S. attorney. That she does a tremendous job with her team, because we probably make more gun prosecutions in this jurisdiction than any jurisdiction I've been in, and we really appreciate that because it's needed. It's also needed in different areas of the United States. The closing has not affected us making our arrests now, getting the suspect charged for their crimes has not affected us, and that's why you're starting to see crime go down, because there's changing the behavior, that there is consequence, even right down to breaking into a vehicle and also stealing vehicles or carjacking. We're down in all those categories substantially. So that has made a difference. So where the jail's at and how they're moving the jail and trying to deal with some of the issues that they've had recently, they're a work in progress. And as far as the funding, I'm not sure the funding that you're speaking about, but we do have the Mayor's Chief of Staff, Jared Boyd, who's here, that might be able to answer that. And if we don't have that answer, we can get that back to you.
Well, before Jared gets up there, I've got a couple more questions. I'm going to go back to the hypothetical. If the lawsuit comes down as we think it is, the judgment is hanging $25 to $50 million that are owed to pay back by the city. If the brunt of that, or even half of that, comes from your budget, law enforcement's budget, is that going to be something you'd support?
No. Would I support anything coming out of our budget? No. I have conversations as a professional with the people I work with and the team and the administration. I'm always going to ask for more, and I'm always going to ask for, I've asked for our budget strength not to come down, which happened in years past, because our actual strength is less than that.
What kind of impact would that have, briefly, on the department, the way that it sets 350 officers short, many different issues that we've heard about today and over the past couple of weeks and months and years? If half of that judgment comes from your budget, what impact do you think it's going to have on a department that is trying to address many of these issues?
Well, at this time, our budget is staying where it's at right now. We've been assured we're an essential employees, that it's not affecting the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, and we're still hiring. And so even with things that we're anticipating, maybe some issues down the road, I'm not aware of any cuts that are going to happen. And right now, my apologies. And I'm not aware of any cuts that are happening right now, but we're already down amount of employees. We're going to stay at this and build off this. I don't think this is going to affect us.
Well, let me wrap up with a couple questions. I know you mentioned Valentine's Law, which is a bill that I've sponsored. We've gotten it passed through the Senate. We just heard the House version the other day. And I obtained that bill, that language, from working with law enforcement in City St. Louis County, St. Charles County, and listening to them. So in speaking to these men and women, all of them have said, literally all of them have said, that they want this bill. What do I tell these officers that are coming down here begging and pleading for this bill or an iteration thereof to get to the governor's desk to save the city? What should I tell them why it's not moving? What should I tell them to give them hope?
Well, is this about saving the city, or this is about the whole state?
I think if the city falls, it impacts the entire state, as the chairman said.
Well, how was the city fall? I'm not sure with the Valentine's bill and making it a crime.
Well, you mentioned Valentine's Law. You mentioned it's a very good bill, and I obtained that information and filed that bill, and I agree with you. It's a great bill. I think it's necessary, but I obtained that information from speaking to the men and women in law enforcement. In those conversations, they've also said, hey, we need this done, we need this done, a lot of which we're getting done, but this is on their top priority list. So those same officers that you have said hey, they're great, you know, and I agree with you. They without them, our state would in be dire straits. What do I tell them to say? Yeah, you know, we need all these things, but this bill, here's why it's not necessary. Or if it doesn't get to the governor's desk, here's some hope as to what you can look forward to without the citizen board control being enacted in law.
All right, that was, I'm going to try to break this out. You're just talking about myself being against state control. Correct?
Yeah, I just want your...
Okay. Well, I think what you have to tell them, or you can go back to them, and I speak to, listen, I've been at, as of late, I go around the department. I'm at FOP meetings. You can have Jay Schrader talk. I have a dialogue with our officers. I talk to them, we got your back. We support you. We understand that the whole United States in this profession right now, not just St. Louis, also every jurisdiction around us and throughout the state. You can even go to a lot of jurisdictions that are down. This is not just a St.
Not necessarily, because in St. Charles, just the other week we had the chief in here. There were 5 down.
There were 5 down.
5 down, that's it.
Okay.
That's a hell of a lot of a difference than 350 down.
Well, talk about L.A., the lowest in 50 years. The NYPD, where I used to be 40,000. It's down to 34,000. Chicago, where I was on, that's 13,000. I think they're down to 9,000.
Well, and as of right now, all those jurisdictions that you're mentioning, you've seen historically, there's not necessarily been an injection of politics into their departments, into policing until lately, until this defund the police movement went across the United States. And all those areas that you're discussing have been plagued by that.
I was just given highlighted areas, but there are numerous. I will tell you, St. Charles County, thank God that they have that. I'm very happy for them because you know what? They're more the exception than the norm right now. So I'm glad they're at that. My last police department, it took us a while to get up to that. We were at budgeted strength, but it took us time to get there. So I'm very happy for my last police department. So when I say it's not all, it's a great percentage throughout the United States. So we're all going through this. Officers, we have your back. What are we doing with the officers that we do have? How are we making sure we're taking care of you? How are we deploying and using smart strategies, making sure we have them in the right areas, using analytics, using crime analysis, leveraging technology, because even if we go up to budgeted strength, we're still going to be leveraging the same technology I'm talking about. And then red light cameras, I think they're going to help because even when we've been at budgeted strength, they've helped in other cities. And I think they're going to bring down the amount of people that probably wouldn't run a red light, pay that summons one time, and then we can narrow the amount of people.
If I can interject real quick, what, in your opinion, with your experience, what works better, saturating the streets with police that are visibly there, or red light cameras with no police?
I think putting the officers in the right place when things are happening. We've been doing missions and working with the Missouri Highway Patrol and with the St. Louis County police officers to try to calm traffic down on the highways. And we've been doing that since the beginning of the year. We started at the end of last year, and we're in strategic areas where we see most of these violations happening. And I think that works. Flooding an area with police officers, I think over the long run, it's not sustainable. So you have to work with the community. You got to make sure that you're building the trust with the community. You tell them what you're doing, and I think that's how you drive crime down. And I think we have to make sure that when it comes to traffic, that's not all we can do, even when we're at budgeted strength. But we got to pick and choose our areas, and we got to make sure if a violation happens, if the officer has the ability to make the stop. But what I love about the law that's coming in place, it gives us an additional tool and a consequence if a person doesn't pull over, because I've heard the statistics, 2,700 in another jurisdiction in the last year, where people are not heeding to the officer's lights to pull over.
Well, to your point, and I've got one more question, that's it. But to your point, I do think technology in policing right now is vital. I do think, looking at the drone abilities to, figure out if a building is flooded with violent people, or if there are 15 people in a car, whatever. I do agree with you. I hope we can get you the tools that you need. The last question that I have, Ethical Society of Police will be here tonight on their first time ever. They've been doing it through the city of St. Louis, Clippers and Cops, getting the community and police together. They're doing it here tonight. It's mind-boggling. Before your time, you probably read up on the rifts between the POA, ESOP, going hundreds of years ago. How do you explain two groups that have historically never agreed on a darn thing are both 100% in line with this bill. How do you explain if it's as great as opponents of this bill say we're on the upswing? Why do we have two groups that have historically never agreed on anything are coming to make sure that this bill gets to the governor's desk?
Well, I think we're living, when we think about state control, and I'm just going off, you're asking my personal opinion here, sir. So when you look at state control versus local control, we're in a different time. We're in a whole different time. And I think people are trying to get back to a time that is gone. We've gone through Ferguson, we've gone through Stockley riots, we've gone through the pandemic, and we went to civil unrest after George Floyd murder up in Minneapolis. That was a different time of when we were under state control. And then actually people asked to come to local control, it was voted on. I think people are looking at that, hoping that this state control could be something that can solve the issue overnight. It's not going to solve the issue overnight. And I think they're looking at that, and you know what? Their job is to make sure they're doing what's best for the police officers, and what the police officers are asking them if they're looking for a time, that time where there was more officers, there was a different type of setup that they thought probably that they moved away from, but now after 10 years they believe that might have been a mistake. So now they're looking at an historical perspective, but we're in a different time. Listen, I know we're in a different time. I'm doing this for 41 years. But my opinion, we are going in a direction during a unprecedented time, and I think we have such opportunity to do it. So I disagree with them, but I can understand where they're coming from. And I have a very good relationship with both those organizations, and I'm going to continue to work whether we disagree or not. So how they've come together, I think they're going back historically. I don't really want to speak, but you asked me my opinion where I think that's coming from. And I speak to a lot of the officers, and some of them are hoping to get more officers back on. But we're gonna get there, and I'm not too sure the state control is going to get us more officers right away. I think this is a process that we're looking at. We're making some headway, but we're still losing to attrition, but we've slowed it down. And I believe this is the way we should be. And I've openly have had those conversations with the rank and file at many of their meetings. They know where I stand, but I still respect what they do, and we have a job to do. And I can't really say why they're going to go, but I can think I kind of know why they're going that direction. I'm not too sure that that's going to help any more than the way we're going now.
Further questions? Senator Williams, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Chief.
Good morning, Senator.
My apologies. We're in the process of trying to get a budget done, so I've been over dealing with appropriations things, so I've missed quite a bit of testimony. So first, thank you for taking time to come up today, and I appreciate the mayor's staff for coming up as well. So I guess my question, and I'll have the same question for the FOP and anyone else that's in support of the bill. How do you perceive this bill, assuming everything is true, that folks are in support of this bill is saying, how do you perceive the bill actually making a change or making a difference, and whether or not you believe it will? So I want to make sure I'm clear when I say it. Do you believe this bill would change the perception of how crime is viewed in the city of St. Louis, or do you feel that it pretty much would not make a difference, and if so, why?
Well, I think that was one of the concerns when I came up last year. I was only on the job for a couple of weeks before I was before this committee. And one of the things is, they said, you keep coming up saying the same thing, but nothing's changing. But there was one change. There's a reason I was hired. There was a reason that they looked outside, because they were looking for some change, and from a person that has had some success that you can look back in other cities, and it's happened in the local control. And those are the things that I asked, that it's going to take time. Yes, this is a huge challenge. And now you have somewhat of an alternative with a person with different eyes within a profession that can look at these things and see if they can try to resolve them. And we were asking for some time to give this police chief a chance. And I think we've met some of those things, but there's some things that are going to take longer to overcome. Then these are not easy solutions, because we didn't get here overnight. But certainly it's going to take some time, and I'm going to continue to work with everyone with our state legislators, with our Board of Aldermen, with our administration, with our community, with our officers, to try to overcome some of these things, and we're in it together. Do I think state control, taking it over, is going to correct these things overnight? I think it's going to take just as long as if we stay in the same process that we're in. And one of the biggest thing is the chief of police going to be the chief and allowed to be able to do the things and take politics out of policing? Because that was the thing that was said to me. I would have not taken this job because it was one of the things that the mayor and the administration and the chief of staff, Jared Boyd, we talked about. If we're going to be successful, we need to do it in a certain way and allow the police chief to do his job, take politics out of policing, hold me accountable. Let me make recommendations, but hold me accountable to what we're doing. And that's all I can ask for, and that's what has been done. And I think that's what's been asked for state control, is let the chief of police do his job to make sure we can to get back to some of the successes. And I think that's what's been told to me, that's what's been happening. And, I'd love to see this through, continued under local control, because it has worked under local control in all the other places that I've worked in.
Yeah, thank you for that. And one more quick question that I think you never get the luxury of really being asked, but how has this process been for you, and what have you learned about yourself just being a police chief in a new city, and a city that I would say if you can master it, you can master any city in the country. How has this been for you, and what are some things that you think you've learned about yourself?
Well, I think if I went straight from New York City to the city of St. Louis, it would have been an unbelievable challenge, but I would still try to accept it. But I have gone to other cities as a person from the outside and have worked and had some success. And even the city that I've been in Wilmington, Delaware, is the first outside chief in 230-year history. That's not an easy challenge. What I found out is that I have made mistakes along the way, and what I try to do is make sure that I don't repeat them, and what has worked, try to continue to do that. And it made me better prepared for a place like St. Louis, but I'm not going to tell you it's easy. It is a challenge, but I knew it was going to be a challenge. But there's so much hope in this city about doing better and making sure that what I've found out in this city of St. Louis is that we harp around some of the challenges. But there's so many great things that are going on in this city that I can say from being in 3 other urban areas. And I think we harp so much on them, we're looking past all the good things that are already being done and continue to be done. And we need to build off that, and then we'll work on those challenges. And what I've learned about myself is keep learning, keep listening, make sure that I'm understanding with the FOP, ESOP. This bill I might not agree with, but at the same time, I respect for where everybody's coming from and can understand it. And if there's things I can improve in that and hear what's going on in that bill, I need to work on some of those things as well from my side.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'll go on record and say that this is the first time that I've experienced members of law enforcement, the unions, but most importantly, the police leadership and the mayor's office communicating at a really high effective level with government and in particular with my office. So for all sides, I would say this is by far something I've been very grateful for.
Well, thank you, sir.
And good to see you.
Good to see you
Further
too.
questions for the chief? Seeing none. Chief, thank you for giving us your valuable time. Really appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Members of the committee, thank you very much.
Further opposition?
This is not easy.
Good morning. Jared Boyd, Chief of Staff in the Mayor's Office. Been here before, like Chief Tracy, and I will reiterate some of the highlights of previous testimony, but want to go back to 2021 when Mayor Jones assumed office, and having the benefit of a little, perspective in 3 years. Mayor Jones inherited a challenging time, a city at a challenging time, and it has taken strong leadership and community buy-in to try to move the needle on public safety. Mayor Jones has family members that have experienced violence. I have family members that have experienced violence. This is not an abstract concept for people who live in the city of St. Louis. This is something that we wake up and try and make an impact on every day. And as a result of that, as a result of the hard work of our men and women at the police department, in other city departments, in our new Office of Violence Prevention, Mayor Jones and Chief Tracy have been able to reduce the homicide rate since she took office by 40% and more than double the clearance rate for homicides. And I think that clearance rate is a really important number that doesn't get talked about enough, because that clearance rate is not only a reflection of collaboration with law enforcement, but it's a reflection of the community working with our law enforcement officers to bring people to justice and cooperate. So I think that's a really important barometer as to the relationship between the community that is being policed and our law enforcement officers. There have been statements made this morning and in other places about the budget being cut. That is not true. The budget has gone up for the police department since the mayor's in office, and she enacted historic raises for police officers last year, and causing the budget to go from $217 million to $235 million. We're at the beginning of our budget process, and our Board of Estimate and Apportionment is made up of the mayor, the comptroller, and the Board of Aldermen president. They vote on a preliminary budget that is sent to our Board of Aldermen, and that Board of Aldermen suggests cuts, and then the Board of Estimate and Apportionment ultimately ratify that budget. That preliminary budget does not have any cuts to the police department and takes into account any contingencies for lawsuits. So even if there is an adverse legal action against the city, the police department's budget would not be cut under the preliminary budget that we have and accounts for that. So again, want to state that the police budget is not being cut, and the preliminary budget reflects that. Additionally, talking about strong leadership, Chief briefly talked about having one boss, and it's not just having a single boss, but having a leader that is able to provide the chief with the tools to collaborate amongst other city departments. So if there's a problem property that's maybe associated with drug trafficking or other negative activity, the chief can call our office or call the building division to make sure that building is boarded up, or a forestry division to make sure those type of lots are handled so that we can make it easier for our law enforcement officers to do their jobs. So amongst that, like I said, strong leadership, strong community buy-in, strong collaboration are some of the ways that we have started to tackle this very incredibly difficult and challenging trend that we deal with in terms of violent crime. But like I said, that this takes strong leadership and community buy-in, and those are two things that are difficult to avoid without political accountability. And while the Missouri State took action on the Circuit Attorney's Office, both the Circuit Attorney and the Mayor are accountable to the voters. If St. Louis does not get safer, then the voters will take that into consideration. And they hear from voters every day, they hear from citizens every day that deal with these issues. So it's a priority for us, and will continue to be a priority. And it's a priority for the citizens of St. Louis. And as I stated, if the mayor or the circuit attorney or any other actors do not make an impact on reducing violent crime, they probably will not hold their office for that much longer. So with that, I thank you all for your time, and happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Also, we need to speed this up. We have to get out of here at 9:30, and we do have another bill. So we've heard these bills a number of times. So if we could try to get through some questions quickly. Any questions for this witness? Senator Schroer, go ahead.
Thank you again for coming today. I'm going to be brief. I know we've got to be out of here by 9:30. Briefly, where's the mayor today?
I'm sorry?
Where's the mayor?
Where is the mayor?
Yes.
She's at a conference representing the city of St. Louis. But I'm sure she
Well, she's been here
provides
numerous times.
well wishes for you.
She's come by this hearing room. She's come by different offices and then goes on social media to discuss how garbage human beings we are for not meeting with her when we made several attempts. So I was hoping to see her here today. I know you've indicated that the mayor and the president of the board, despite what has been said on the Business Journal and KSDK, that they don't want to take the brunt of that judgment out of the law enforcement budget. Can you guarantee us today that that's not going to happen if this judgment goes the wrong way?
As I stated before, our budget contemplates contingencies for legal, adverse legal judgments, including the earnings tax judgment. The preliminary, you don't have to, I don't have to guarantee it. I can just tell you, like I said, the preliminary budget that was passed both takes into account for the contingencies of a bad legal judgment and does not cut the police department. On top of that, if you look at our priorities in terms of hiring, in terms of where, not I'm just telling you, but where I'm showing you where our priorities are, you can look to where we have prioritized hiring, and also in the priority of we have said, hey, we're going to slow down and freeze non-essential positions. The police department, the entire police department is considered essential positions. So while other departments have been prevented from posting new positions, the police department continues to operate as normal.
So we shouldn't see any, if this case goes the way we think it's going to, where the city's going to owe 25 to 50 million, we shouldn't see, the general public shouldn't see law enforcement being impacted by that.
The current budget that is at the beginning of the budget process contemplates no cuts to the police department, even if we are to receive an adverse legal judgment. And that's been passed by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment already.
The last question that I have, I know you've indicated that there's been no defunding of the police. When I look back, I think it was 2022, I had to go back through my files and see it looked like the police patrol was taken out of the community policing budget back in 2022 and 2023. It looks like diverted $40 million of patrol budget to community policing, and then patrol was taken out of there. Do you have any statistics to show that that's not true?
Sure. I'm happy to provide the committee with a budget breakdown and may have submitted it on the record. I know I did it on the House side, but I may have submitted the budget on the record previously. Somewhat like our crime statistics, our police budget both receives an allocation from the general fund, it receives an allocation from different sales tax and other taxes. So sometimes when you look at one budget, it's not reflective of the entire police budget. So our general fund budget funds a majority of the police department, but we have a half-cent sales tax that also funds a portion of the police fund budget. So happy to provide those numbers, which clearly show, like I said, last year, the budget went from $217 million to $235 million.
Well, it looks like it is going up, but when you dig down deep into it and figure out where the money's actually going, that's when we recognized back in 2022 and 23 that it actually wasn't going to patrol, and patrol was actually losing money based upon the budgets that you all were passing. We'll look forward to that. Hopefully you can get that to us by the end of the week. And lastly, I know that this train wreck of the crime statistics is still ongoing. I just pulled up another story, storymaps.arcgis.com. They've got more information, the forensic geospatial analysis of crime according to the city's numbers, according to SLU's numbers. So hopefully you can all get that figured out, because I think, again, the people need an answer either way. If crime's actually going down, great. If it's not going down, but I think people need to figure out what the true story is. With that, thank you for your time.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Anybody else here to testify in opposition to the bill?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Sharon Goway-Jones here today on behalf of the Missouri State Conference of the NAACP in opposition to the bill. This is not a solution that any other state has ever used. Kansas City and St. Louis are the only two cities in the country that have not been allowed to control their own police force through locally elected officials. Moreover, we notice that Springfield has rising crime statistics and a massive disparity in the number of law enforcement officers, and this isn't being discussed there. So it leads us to wonder why St. Louis and Kansas City are being targeted this way, and we would ask that the state support the locally elected officials there as opposed to trying to undermine them at every turn. With that, I'd take any questions.
Questions from this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Anybody else here to testify in opposition? Again, we have about 10 minutes left in this room and another bill to hear, so please keep your comments short. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Gwen Smith. I am the Criminal Justice Policy Manager with Empower Missouri. I'm also a resident and taxpayer in the city of St. Louis. I will keep my comments very brief. One thing that I want to highlight is that Proposition A was passed in 2012 with over 60% of the statewide vote. So Missouri voters voted in overwhelming support of local control for the city of St. Louis. And this legislation not only undermines the will of the people by imposing state control in an area where we should have control of locally elected officials, but it doesn't put the issue back in front of voters to hear their voice. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for testimony. Any questions? Seeing none. Anybody else here to testify in opposition? Anybody for informational purposes? That'll conclude the hearing on the bill. Representative, you have any closing remarks? Thank you, Representative. The next bill we'll go to is Senator Brown's Senate Bill 1476, going to be presented by Senator Bean. Senator, proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. For the record, Jason Bean, State Senator of the 25th District, here to present Senate Bill 1476 on behalf of Senator Justin Brown. Senate Bill 1476 adds vehicles operated by county or municipal park rangers to the definition of emergency vehicle, which allows them the right-of-way and display emergency lights. This language made it to the governor's desk in 2022. However, the bill was thrown out of court by being multiple subject. Appreciate the hearing today and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator. Anybody here to testify in favor of the bill? Come on up, hop up. Only got a couple minutes.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Gary Gates, the Executive Director of Missouri Park and Recreation Association here to support this bill. And we're a victim of House Bill 1606 a few years ago. Came through this committee. We heard testimony from a county police officer in St. Louis County that said they could pull a vehicle over with a horse, but not their car. So I thought that was the best demonstration of what we could do. So we are in support. Thank you for your support, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Seeing no questions, further testimony and support.
Mr. Chairman, Chase Campbell, going on record in support for St. Louis County. Just see it as a matter of safety.
Questions? Seeing none. Anybody else here to testify in favor? Anybody to testify in opposition? Anybody for informational purposes only? That'll conclude the hearing on that Senate bill, and that'll conclude the hearing on transportation, infrastructure, and public safety for today.